Hello, and welcome to Queer Onda El Paso. We are your hosts, Ted Escobedo,
Izzy Mora,
and Ceci Marquez.
Today, our guest is Sam Escobedo, also known as Damas B. Wilson. We talked to Sam the morning after Damas was crowned Miss Touch Sweetheart 2024. He talks about becoming Damas, their background, and what they have learned from their experiences as a drag queen in El Paso. So your current title and occupation at Touch, and what other else you do?
I'm actually a full-time bartender. I bartend during the day and at night. I really love bartending, but I can't stand people, so it's a very contradictive.
Come to Touch and visit Sam.
And you'll get the attitude that you deserve.
Well, behave yourself.
So tell us a little bit about your story, like how when you were just a young gay baby, and even though we're related, I don't know this story. I didn't really know Sam. So what is your gay story?
Oh gosh, so that's a lot to remember. I remember starting drag in my bathroom that didn't have a lock on the door, so I would wait till 3 a.m. to play with makeup, and it was always my mom's really underwhelming cosmetics. Now I could say that. And it just went from there until I started asking for my grandfather to buy me makeup, and he would be okay, because I would say I was going to do other people's makeup, and it just went from there. And then I was making pads out of polyfill and pillowcases. I didn't know you could do that.
Padding for
my hips.
Okay.
How old were you, Sam?
I was 14.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I came out when I was 12. I came out when I was 12.
Instinctual to do the padding.
Yeah, you went right from the closet to to Macy's. Tell us a little bit about that, about the coming out process. How did that? How did the two things relate to each other? The coming out as a gay man, mm-hmm. and then also the interest in doing drag. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when it came to the coming out part, it clicked one day when my best friend, his name was Thomas, Thomas picked up playing football with another group of friends, and I was fuming. I had no concept of why I was that upset. And I remember I went home and I was telling my mom about it, and she was listening real intently. And her friend was there, and she's like, "Did you like Thomas?" I was like, "Well, yeah." She's like, "No, do you like Thomas?" And I was like, "I never thought about it." And she's like, "Do you like girls?" I was like, "I never thought about it." And she's like, "That's not typical for young men." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Well, I mean, if you ask me right now, I would want to to hold his hand," and it just kind of happened. My mom was like, "So are you gay?" I was like, "I think so." She's like, "Cool. Do you want to go to McDonald's?"
That is so sweet.
Your mom is my favorite person right now.
So what did you get at McDonald's? A gay meal instead of a happy meal? No, that is wonderful. That's a great story. What about the drag thing? How did that come about within your family dynamic and coming out?
So coming out as gay was one thing. Coming out as a drag queen raised a lot of questions. It was like, "Oh, do you want to be a girl?" I was like, "No, I don't want to be a girl." But I had done dance and performance. I had all of the skills because I was dabbling a lot of makeup. I would do hair. I was in the cosmetology program in school because they offered it. So you could graduate with your licensing. And it just kind of all of the pieces fell into line, and I was like, well, I don't constantly have someone to work on, so I'll do it myself. And my phone didn't have the best signal, so it's not like I was on YouTube trying to find ways to do these things. And at the time, RuPaul's Drag Race had just picked up, mm-hmm. but we didn't have cable, so I wasn't about to watch it. So I just distinctly remember putting it all on one day, and I was like, whoa, I really like this. I was like a brand new person. And at first my mom was like, well, I mean, that's kind of a lot. But then it turned into, okay, can you do that on me?
Which is the best endorsement, right?
And then we lived with my grandfather, and despite the fact that he was a World War, oh my gosh, he's not that old.
He's 130.
A Vietnam War veteran, and super traditional, very machismo. I mean, we grew up on a little farm out in the sticks in Socorro. He never made me feel bad about it for a second, except when I wore blonde hair. He would say, you look ugly. Straight up, you look ugly.
So he just didn't like blonde.
Grandpa had a thing against blonde.
Someone heard him.
That's amazing. You be true to your Latina side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's another thing about doing drag in El Paso is that, we kind of have a unique brand here because there's a lot of, kind of El Paso-ness to drag here in El Paso. You've been around, you've been to other cities and you've seen drag. How does it differ from here in El Paso?
I will say here it's like there's two major cliques and it's pretty easy to deal with. The dynamics are a mutual form of respect. No one's out here like trying to kill each other. But in other cities, I have noticed it's like there's like fangs and knives like ready whenever the wrong person walks by, and it gets a little intense.
Like a real life West Side Story, but
yeah. And I think to myself like, oh my gosh, we're real kumbaya over there.
That's an El Paso thing because I think that even coming out in the gay bars and stuff, it's really a community. Here you have women and men going to bars together. Yeah. You go to other gay ghettos for West Hollywood or even other places like that. It's either men in bars or women in bars, and the two don't come together. And El Paso is very intermingled, so that's a good.
I remember first running into that. going to Sue Ellen's in Dallas, and people looking at you like, "What are you doing here?
Right?
What young man are you doing here?" Yeah. Man being the big thing.
Right? Yeah. No, and in El Paso, we're kind of not like that here. And so it's good to know that drag is, the drag community is kind of like that as well.
Very much so.
How would you describe it?
I don't necessarily want to say supportive because I am guilty of rooting on everybody's downfall. And I will make it perfectly clear upon meeting them. Like, sweetheart, I pray you never get as good as me. And if you do, you will lose an Achilles tendon.
You'll never wear heels again.
Yeah. Stand in my shade.
You're going to be Hot Wheels up there in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Speaking about how good you are, what titles have you been awarded?
Okay, so my first one was Miss Touch, which I didn't know at the time was like the big deal there. After that, I won Miss Prep, I believe, which was organized locally by a prep clinic.
Cool.
After that, I did Miss Gay El Paso Icon US of A Newcomer. That's a mouthful. And just last night, I won Miss Touch Sweetheart.
Yay! Congratulations.
So you got 4 crowns?
Yes.
4 crowns. And do you have them on display at your house?
I literally have my crown in the car still because I did not unpack the car. In the house, I do have a glass case when you walk in that has a light on top. It's like,
does it revolve with a mirror ball? Practically.
I live with another drag queen, so it's our crowns.
So tell me about that. I used to, when I was living with 2 bartenders when I was a young man in my 20s, we used to say during drag season, it was like, glitter was flying through the house at all hours of the day and night, and it was just pandemonium, but so much fun. Is it like that in your house?
I don't want to say so. My roommate is, we do have an age gap, like a good 15 to 20 years. And he's very organized. It's like if he has a project going on, it's done, clean, there's nothing to even look at. And then I will poke in and I'm like, well, I'll borrow that and borrow that. And I'll just go over here and mind my business. But for the most part, if you walked in the house, aside from the case of crowns, you wouldn't even think there was drag queens in there.
Really?
Yeah.
So tell me, when you adopt your drag personality, which is Damas B. Wilson, right? Okay, we'll talk a little bit about how you came up with the name. I think Izzy wanted to ask you about that. But
yeah, very curious.
do you draw a real distinction between her and you?
In a sense, I do feel like I have certain horrible word to use, like Damas-isms, even that I do in the part of my day where I'm a boy. And I'll be at work and I'm making certain faces that I would really only make, or I'm standing a certain way, or I'm like posed. So sometimes I do feel like the lines get really blurred, but I don't want to say there's a harsh distinction. Right. Because I can't change my voice very much. So it's right here.
And I think that's kind of charming about watching you perform, is that you don't. I mean, there is what I was getting at is that in my mind, and you would know much more than I would, but I think there's kind of like two different types of drag performers. One is a true female impersonator who really does go all out. And then there's, in what I would call it, just a drag queen that's kind of got a little more camp to it. Would you agree with that? Or how do you see that?
I mean, you got to get me on the day. There's days where I am like out there corset. I am going to look like a complete woman. But my drag has always been like that aspect of outrageousness. I want to look like a cartoon, like I'm painted by color. Right. Yeah. Because I feel like drag always stemmed from a place of like humor and kind of like a middle finger to gender and certain conformities. And I always like to keep that little bit of stank on it. Right.
I love that. You know, one of the things that I love as part of your performance is when you do the deep voice.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. And it brings it all back. Oh, yeah, I've been watching this performer and everything, but now there's this deep voice.
What are some of the major events in your life that led you to where you are now, the person that you are today?
Am I like trauma blocking right now? I'm kidding.
I don't know how I would answer that question. Yeah. Well, honestly, yeah, I do.
I mean, since I was a kid, I've always tried really hard to have a sense of independence, because although my mom was a good mom, she lacked a certain amount of presence. That we all have our vices, and she unfortunately had hers, as did my father. And I didn't have an opportunity to really not care or like be, what's a good word I could use?
Carefree.
Yeah.
Carefree. A kid.
Yeah. I hate saying that.
Yeah, but the innocence of growing up without those other things on your mind.
I distinctly remember like getting lunch money and I'm like, I'm going to keep this in my pocket because we need to put gas in the car when I'm off. Like, I was thinking about it the entire time. I'm like, wait, like I can't eat too much today because I don't know if we're going to have enough food for like my brother and sister. It was like constantly something dwelling that didn't necessarily let me be, like you said, carefree. So I always wanted to be in complete like control of myself. It pushed me to wanting to be good at everything I did so that I could look at myself and look back and say, like, I did that. I used that like sense of independence that I just managed to take and run with. Because I moved out when I was 18. I got my first apartment at 18. I was like walking to work, refused to ask anybody for a ride. I was independent. Like, ain't nobody gonna say that they were helping me with a single thing. And I think that really made like creating Damas easy, because that's the part of me that I like to say is carefree and just exists as like a moment in time of just having fun.
Well, and it would seem to me like her confidence, is a nice shoe to step into, because, you could kind of assume something that isn't quite so, you don't have to worry about paying the rent or the grocery bill or your brothers or sisters or any of that. You just could be. And so I guess that's another form of liberation once you started to really perform.
Yeah, I agree.
Tell us about your first time in a gay bar.
Oh, gosh. My first time in a gay bar.
You were 12.
Your story surprises me. I mean, I as a 55-year-old gay man who couldn't come out until his mid-20s, when somebody says I was 12 when I came out, I'm like, oh my goodness, look at you. Good. So tell us about your first time when you actually ventured out into the gay world.
I snuck into the OP. I was very young. Like 15, I think. And I remember I crawled out the window to my house, which was a very small home. Tiny. There was no like rooms aside from the restroom. So if all my grandpa had to do was turn his head to see if I was I remember I got to the OP, and at the time Zemo was a thing.
Oh wow!
And people were hiding like the big ones underneath the stairs for like after last call. And I remember I stole one of those and I ran to the restroom, and like how they were all lined up. There was like 30 stalls. I chugged my Zima in there, ran out, was dancing for a little while, having a good like little gay time, and then come full circle. My roommate now was performing that night. The best drag queen I ever saw. I lived with him.
How crazy is that? That's wonderful. Do you remember what number she did?
I feel like, because I just remember the costume, but knowing her, I feel like it was her Spanish guitar number. Who sings that? Is it Tony Braxton? I'm not sure. But I distinctly remember like the red dress, low bun with a flower in it.
Oh wow!
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a big lady.
You know, one of the things about the OP, especially at least for us, I think me and Izzy had similar experiences, is that when I first went there, and I was probably 17, Izzy probably was younger.
16.
Yeah. And I saw a drag performer. And there was something still so naughty about it. Like, it was like, you know, here's this guy dressed as a woman. It was terrible, by the way. He did like this, come on, baby, do the locomotion. But, you know, and with really bad choreography and a really bad wig. And I had just kind of started to accept myself as gay. And I was like, well, I may be newly gay, but I know that's not good drag. But I celebrated it, and it put a big smile on my face because it was truly liberating to feel like I was in this space where that was okay. And people were cheering her on, and she was having a good time. And it was just an amazing kind of enclave that we created. What about you, Is?
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to the OP, I remember being really nervous walking into the line, and I was holding the hand of some stranger who I'd asked, you know, walk in with me, you know, that kind of thing.
And that set the stage for many years.
Oh yeah.
Holding hands with strangers. That was his middle name.
Not strangers with candy, but holding hands with strangers. But yeah, no, and I remember walking in, and one of the first drag queens was this big Latina, and I remember thinking, wow, it's just out there. They don't care. Look at this. And so that was liberating. And also, you know, all the men holding hands and you know, kissing and those kinds of things. And then was the days of the big bushy mustaches. That was the 80s, you know. Yeah. And so I thought, wow, masculinity, making out. It was just enormously overwhelming and cool. I remember thinking, I have arrived. This is where I'm supposed to be.
And that's where we stayed for 20 years. And I pretty much, you know, got my mail there for 20 years. It was kind of like that thing where it was the masculine man, it was the female impersonator, it was a drag queen, it was everything in between. And that's another thing that I think is kind of a little unique to the El Paso experience, because if you just, you know, even today that we have Epic instead of the OP and stuff, you know, it is, and Touch. But Touch is like, identifies as a drag bar. Is that right? And so how is that different in the crowd that you all attract?
I hate saying this, but I feel like we attract an audience that doesn't want to stand or be pushed on, because you just sit.
Yeah.
It's an entertainment venue. Yeah.
Your servers come to you and they walk away. And they come back and they walk away. You don't really have to get up for anything aside to use a restroom, or if your bartender's taking too long. I think our crowd is very much like, it caters to the people that don't want to deal with like a hustle and bustle, because I find myself on nights where like I want 4 people to bump into me for no reason.
Yeah. Well, that's most nights for me.
That's why relationships start.
That's how I met my husband.
But Touch, I will say, it did kind of spoil me a little bit because I do find myself like, no one get married.
The irony of the name.
Yeah. Wow, very good.
Not touch.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a good distinction, I think. And what about the crowd, the audience itself? Do they? It would seem that they would just be much more receptive to a drag performer. Is that right?
I would like to say yes, but there's always the stragglers where they got dragged in by somebody, and it's the last thing that they want to see. And those are my favorite people.
How do you deal with it?
The second I get a microphone, I'm like, babe, are you in danger? Twice if you need help. And they'll just be staring at me. I'm like, hello? And I act like I'm the miracle worker, and I'll be like, water, Helen. Water.
Okay, the fact that you even get a miracle worker reference is amazing.
What if this does with audience? Yeah.
You deserve that crowd.
I mean, my favorite movie was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Oh, gosh. Love that movie.
I love that you have references like that. And I think it informs your character, Adamas. Is that right? I mean, you do bring up a lot of things that are kind of in the real world. I mean, it's you do kind of reference other things, which I think is entertaining. I'm assuming that that's just part of who you've always been.
I think so. I'm kind of like a sponge with things. I just like listen and I memorize. I memorize things a little too often. I can recount things perfectly, but if it's important, good luck. If it's an actual importance, good luck. I don't remember if I turned the stove off.
But you've got a singer for that, dude, in the third row.
Well, and I can see that because I love how quick you are when you're on stage. It's like you've got a quick retort for every moment that comes your way.
I don't even know where it comes from. I think that filter between brain and mouth, I just completely got rid of it. So I don't think before I speak, I just speak.
That's great, though. Do you think differently when you're in drag? Is that a part of it too? Does that kind of help when you're kind of improving or riffing with somebody in the crowd?
Frankly, yeah. And it dawned upon me, because I never really thought about it, but it really clicked when my boss had asked me to host a pageant. I had showed up to help backstage somebody, just assisting them getting ready. And he put the mic in my hand and I was like, I have no idea what to say right now. I've never done this in my life. How do I turn this on? I had no concept of how to host a show out of drag. Because I don't feel that sense of comfortability. I can speak a certain way. For some reason, my jokes don't click the same. It's just maybe the tape around my head to keep my wig on is so tight that
it keeps the comedy fresh.
But
it channels things.
I have no idea how to do this, and I need to get out of here immediately.
But you're so good at it. And now you're kind of like the go-to host for Drag Brunch, right?
Yeah. And I'm so grateful because I remember when I first started as a baby queen 9 years ago. Yeah. I thought about it on the way here. I was like, 9 years. I remember back then I was like, oh my God, one day I'm going to be able to do that. I can't wait to be able to host a show. And now I'm doing it. And I'm like, here we go. Another day.
I always wonder is how do you come up with your name? That some people come from drag families, say they're all Jackson. So it's, Cher Jackson or that kind of thing, because they admired Cher. But yours is a totally different kind of conglomeration.
It's a little unique.
Yeah. I wanted to know how you came up with that.
So the easiest part, Wilson, I love heart. And
oh, yes.
I love the Wilson sisters. I was like, Wilson, there it is. Easy.
Wow.
You and me both. I love that.
Damas, however, my grandfather had an accent and he didn't necessarily talk to me in Spanish a lot. I learned Spanish later in life. When he would call me a dumbass, it sounded like Damas.
That's Fantastic.
So my name's a double entendre.
Love it.
And the B is because it was the day of my first show, and that state of like awake when like your eyes are closed and you're just laying there. It was that morning I was laying there and I was like, oh, come on, dumbass. I was like, wait. And when I was a kid, one of my best friends, her name was Dana, but she was good at everything. She was like the person I wanted to be. She was in sports. Her boyfriend was gorgeous. She was smart. She was like salutatorian because she wasn't valedictorian. She wasn't that smart. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. And the B just came because it's supposed to be like dumbass bitch.
Got it. Okay.
Awesome.
The irony, you talk about irony, is that there's such a smart ass on stage.
I know. Once I tell the story, everyone, like, you could hear it. You're like, ooh, dumbass.
So tell us, what was your first time putting on makeup and what did it look like?
I looked horrid. I distinctly remember I used my mother's MAC foundation, which was too dark for her. And
Did you know that at the time?
No. At the time, I was stunning. At the time, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Right.
Hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. And I was blind. I had this horrid white eyeshadow pasted across an uncovered eyebrow. So it was just like hair with eyeshadow. And I was like, this is the pinnacle of cosmetics. I am what everyone should aspire to be. And it was horrendous. If I could go back in time, I'd be like, hey, stop. Turn the lights on.
That would be a great little scene for a movie.
Yeah.
You know, the young drag queen being informed by the older version.
Too much blue. The Borderland Rainbow Center is a community space that offers weekly peer support groups online or in person for LGBTQ teens, trans, adults, and as well as counseling for addictions and recovery. Also, Drag Queen Story Hour. Their goal is to provide a safe space for all members of the LGBTQ community. For more information, visit borderlandrainbow.org or on our website at queeronda.com.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, our guest is Sam Escobedo, also known as Damas B. Wilson.
I assume that it takes a lot to go get into the full uniform or what have you of it. How long does it take you?
This is going to sound very hard to believe, I could get ready in about 40 minutes.
Wow.
Like full makeup, body and hair. For instance, today, I go in at 5:30 and I get off around 10. That gives me 20 minutes to go from the west side to Touch. I walk in at that point, it's say 10:30, and I have a full hour to get into drag, but I shave right before every performance because I refuse to be crunchy. And by the time I'm backstage and actually putting on cosmetics, I'm working with about 30 to 40 minutes, and every single time I am completely ready.
Wow, so you really have it down to a system pretty much.
Yeah.
So what do you think about when you're putting on your makeup?
Oh dear. I am absurdly OCD. So the only thing that crosses my mind is if this girl to my left crosses, because we have tape that divides like our individual stations, if her hairspray can touches my tape, I'm gonna freak out.
It's like a scene from Burlesque.
Absolutely. And there's very few people that I'm okay with touching my cosmetics because I do invest a lot of money into my makeup. And I'll open a bag and I'll just look up and like, who has my lip liner? Because it goes in this bag. and I don't know why you moved it. And when they go, I'm sorry. You sorry? Put it back. And I'll just continue putting it like that.
Do you like feel like you've got it down so much that you kind of just wish that it would just like, you could fast forward immediately, just jump into it? Like in The Simpsons, didn't they have a gun that would like shoot this makeup onto this lady's face? And then Marge goes, I don't think people are going to want to shoot themselves in the face. But, but I thought to myself at the time, I thought, well, what a great idea to just instantly snap your fingers and boom, you're done.
I mean, if I could just stunning.
I think of the Jetsons.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Like just go through and then
like a car wash. Just
that would be incredible.
It would be,
because I enjoy getting in drag. It's still there's part I could call it therapeutic. Even there's certain days where when I have the time. Like yesterday, I got to the bar at 6 o'clock to be ready by 11. So I was every shadow, every cream. I was stepping back.
Everything was perfectly blended.
Yeah.
And I was still ready an hour before. I was sitting there pissed.
And I wanted to ask about your drag character, your drag persona. Do you think that Damas is an extension of yourself, or is that an entirely different character than
I want to say it's an extension of me. Because there's never, like, the lines are so gray when it comes to my personality. I carry a lot of it over. I think there's always just like, once I'm actually in, I do feel a lot more like liberated. I'm okay with being goofier because I tend to be kind of stoic. In other instances, like at work, I'm just standing there like dead-eyed, 1,000-yard stare until someone acknowledges me, and then you'll like get some conversation if you're lucky. But the moment I feel like I'm even talking or thinking about anything like drag related, I feel like I've blossomed.
Bigger.
Yeah.
Have you bartended in drag?
I have.
What's that like? Different?
Horrible.
why?
Because I refuse to be in drag in sneakers, tennis shoes, anything flat.
Because you were raised right.
I have to be in a heel. There's no question about it. And I don't mind like running around in heels. Easy. The issue begins when I always have my hair down. So I was wearing a human hair wig and it came down to almost my waist, and I had to banana clip it, and I turned and looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, oh no, man. I don't sweat, and for some reason that day I was drenched. I was sweating like a whore in church.
I guess we'll talk about Drag Race, and that's a big show. RuPaul and has done so much for the drag community and for making drag queens, friendlier to the wider audience, to a heterosexual audience. What more do you think that Drag Race does for the drag community?
I like to think that it's created like such a platform for everyone to be kind of aware of it. I remember there was a point in time where like I heard drag queen and I didn't necessarily have like an idea or like a personification for it. But now when I think of Drag Race, it even helped mold like my own personal idea of drag. When I was coming into it, I was like, oh my gosh, like these people are like, they're really out here. They're doing it. They're doing the most. I think it also has given a lot of its contestants a very ill-placed ego. But that is my own personal feelings towards some drag queens that I've met.
I'll spill it. Who?
Oh gosh, I'm very vocal about it. She rubbed me every kind of the wrong way, which doesn't make sense because she was like first out on her season. But her name was Alyssa Hunter. She was like, she's a very handsome man, very handsome. I'm sure that in the right circumstance, he is a wonderful person. But when he was here, I have never genuinely wanted to leave the building because of like another entertainer. Because nobody makes me feel uncomfortable in my own home. And I was like, I need to be removed because she is just gross. That is awful. I don't know who raised you. I don't know who made you like that. I don't know if your flight, like, there was turbulence and you bashed your head against the ceiling and you got here in a bad mood, but I didn't like it. On the other hand, I've made incredible friends out of like the drag race entertainers.
Well, in that sort of vein, also, what are like the unspoken rules of like drag entertainers?
I mean, one of mine is never touch my mascara, never touch my perfume because I don't want another girl smelling like me. Oh my gosh, you never, ever, ever redo another girl's song. That is a quick way to start a fight. It gets heated because they plan out, like these girls are looking like towards the end of their weekend thinking like, I learned this song all week and you're going to do the exact same song as me.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do then?
I do it before them.
You get yourself up on the lineup first. Yeah.
I've told girls before, I'm like, if you think you're doing my song, I am before you on the lineup. I will change this song just to spite you. Just to spite you.
We'll jump into one other question that I had about that is what's the big trend right now? What are some of the top hits in drag?
Everyone, like every drag queen I've ever seen in any city that I've like traveled to in like recent years has a Dua Lipa mix ready. They are ready to do Don't Start Now or what is it? New Rules. That was like her first song. I don't know. I mean, I've seen some of. Jesus, forgive me for using this word, but some of the oldest entertainers I know, like age-wise, they the most mature. There we go.
That's a tired old queen.
The season.
I've seen them do the same Dua Lipa song that like the baby queen that's running around in like her mom's shoes is doing.
Right.
So like her appeal is like universal. Don't get me wrong. I still think that everyone should have like 3 Deborah Cox songs ready to go, but that's just me.
Right.
And like a couple Whitney Houstons, it's not right, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I started drag at like a really unique time because it was like phasing out of that, like we do everything ourselves, and we were kind of like the internet was influencing like a lot of what we did, and Drag Race had like a really big hand in it.
Sure.
So we were doing like TV drag and online drag, and Instagram and Facebook were starting to pick up and grow, like get a lot of traction with cosmetics. So a lot of us were like, well, we have our handbook right here. We really don't need to do all that. But like trial and error. We just have like how to do it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. I think so. Technology is really kind of, fast forwarded drag quite a bit.
Immensely. There's baby queens that I'm seeing like one weekend and the next I'm like, huh? She's like, oh yeah, like TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't even have TikTok. And I'm
wow.
I know I've seen certain celebrities, gay celebrities that get on and talk about how to put on their foundation and how to contour and all of that. That's amazing. So you have ready-made this tutorial on how to do drag.
Frankly, yeah. You just have to watch a Kylie Jenner tutorial and you'll get it full.
More than you need to know, honey.
Yeah. Plump those lips.
Yeah. What drag queen has influenced you the most?
Oh gosh. I will say it's hard to pick specifically one, but I mean, my roommate Amber D. Stevens was incredibly like influential in my drag, specifically because she is extremely crass, and it molded a lot of like how I provide feedback because it did make me better. When I thought that I would look cute in a 2-piece, and she said, "Don't put that on again." And in my mind, I was thinking, "Well, why not?" And she's like, "Girl, don't." leave that where you found it. And one of my other mentors in drag, her name is Josephine O'Hara Andrews. She is in Dallas now. She lived here for a while. She taught me a lot about sewing, constructing, being demanding. Because I've always been very, I will dig my heels in about anything that I feel passionately about. But she definitely was like, no, you're going to go and you're going to fix whatever is going on. You're going to make this right. You're going to get what you deserve. She's like, don't accept what people are wanting to give you. Get what you deserve. So she molded a lot of my mentality. Amber definitely had a lot to do with my eye for drag and my eye for other people's drag.
Yeah.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah, well, the two are kind of not, they have to go together. You know what you like and you know what's not good. Yeah, you know what you don't
Absolutely.
like. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Who would you want to play you in a movie of your life?
In my mind, baby me would have to be Fantasia. I'm kidding.
You were born a poor black girl too. That reminds me. We'll be playing Baby Mama, that song. Worst song in the world, but I love it. No, seriously, not Fantasia. Who would play you as young Sam Damas?
Oh gosh. You know what's strange? I've always gotten so many comparisons to Pete Davidson.
Oh yeah,
I can see it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then he had an SNL skit with RuPaul where they put him in drag, and it looks like me.
Really?
And I just sat there okay. And he literally does that in the skit. So I would like to say him for present day, but also I'm not a 6'1" biracial man, so I'd probably have to settle for that one kid that was in Love, Simon.
I see both of those very much. I think you're cuter than both of them. But those are good. That's good casting. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we'll make some calls when we're done.
Yeah. Casting agent. What trend in drag do you think needs to go away? Needs to disappear?
Oh my gosh. Drag queens that don't pad. That is a thorn in my ass you cannot believe, because proportions are a thing. And unfortunately, even for very small individuals, I say they have a sparrow chest, because their rib cage is always going to sit a little high. So when they turn to the side, it's just the letter P. They look wonky. And when I try in a nice way, hey babe, maybe put a little something so you don't look like a pencil. Or contrary, individuals with my structure think the exact same. They can pull off their evening gowns and their bodysuits with no padding, and unfortunately they need to be reminded that they're shaped like a cereal box and they might need a hip. Right. Because I will be damned if I ever go out without padding. It'll be a cold day in hell, because I'm built like a man. Yeah. And for the most part, most drag queens are, unless they have been edited or touched by an angel. Yeah. And that is oh my gosh, I see it and immediately I'm turned off. I don't care how much baby oil you put on your legs, how much glitter. It just irks me to the upteenth degree. Unless, if the shoulders match the hips and they have a corset so tight they wouldn't be able to take a deep breath if they tried, I'm all for it. Right. But for the most part, no one's built like that.
And you need to breathe.
Yeah. I recently saw one girl come out in this slink little bodysuit with no padding, and it was a boy. It was a 10-year-old boy with a wig on.
I don't know if I should be calling somebody. I feel like I'm in trouble. I'm gonna get put on the watch list. Put some pants on.
You can find Damas every Sunday at Drag Brunch at Touch Bar, 11395 James Watt, number 16 on El Paso's east side off Lee Trevino. Doors open at noon, show starts at 1:30. Who doesn't love a good brunch? Find out more information at touchbarelpaso.com. Welcome back as we continue our conversation with Sammy Escobedo, also known as Damas B. Wilson.
Have you ever been hit on while you're in drag?
A lot. And I don't get it. By air quotes, straight men.
Okay.
Because if you're hitting on me in full geesh, we got a problem. So the math is not mathing.
Right.
Because I don't look like a woman in drag. I look like an exaggeration of one, but I definitely don't pass as like I can't walk to an Albertson in full geesh
Right.
and not get clocked.
Yeah.
So when I do get hit on, I'm like, sir, the wig comes off. And I have never and I will never interact in any promiscuous ways in drag.
Really? Well, one, it's kind of, you're patted down, so it's going to take a while to get to where you need to go.
Yeah.
There's no circulation from the waist.
But that's an interesting phenomenon. I mean, I often thought, and so what about gay men that fetishize drag? Have you been hit on by gay men that are?
I did actually date someone for a while that was crazy about me in drag. Like, yeah, Sam was cool. And he was like, yeah, Sam. But the moment I was in drag, I was like, I was the hottest piece of ass that you could find. And I was like, you need help.
Red flag.
That ended rather quickly, but I was like, take my heels off. I'd be walking around my house in them, and I was like, sir, put those back. Those are Gianni beanie, and your feet are gross.
Somebody wanted to trade places.
Hello.
Yeah.
I think you need to start doing drag. Not here, elsewhere. I went home.
And not in my clothes. Yeah.
While you're in drag, of all the things that you've done, have you ever been in a physical fight in drag?
Yes.
Okay, that's the story.
Yes.
Well, I have a reputation for being extremely confrontational and very feisty, and I have never strayed away from hitting someone because I feel like sometimes people just need to get smacked a little bit. I don't know, but that's also like the an era where I grew up, where it was like sometimes someone needs their ass kicked. But if I remember correctly, oh gosh. This is horrible.
It's okay, no shame, no judgment.
This is horrible. I was in, I believe it was in Dallas. I have no idea who the individual was that I hit. But, you know, when you tap the back of someone's knee, their leg will buckle?
Oh,
Well, I typically will only lock one knee because I was in, I was a flaget in marching band. If you lock both your knees for too long, you pass out. So I've always been terrified. So he kept doing that to me. And I didn't think it was funny. He thought it was hilarious. And I politely told him, hey, I don't know you. Do not do that again. And he was like, oh, and walks away. And I was like, okay, that's the end of it. Did it again. And this time I was not as nice. I was like, you get one more chance before I whoop your ass. He's like, you won't put your hands on me. And I was like, you don't want to find out because I got big hands. And I was with a friend of mine, and crazy enough, he was my day job boss because I decided to take drag on a work trip. I was feeling my fantasy.
just in case.
No explanation needed.
And he does it again. So I turned around, kicked off both heels because they were just little pumps that you could pop on and off, and I started wearing him thin. And I was wearing him thin, and then I got my heel and I started hitting him with my heel. And I was like, I told you to stop. And he's like, I can't believe you hit me. And I was like, you can't? I can. Right. I believe it. It's perfectly within my character. But you don't know me, so don't do those things.
Yeah.
Out of drag, quite a bit. Really? Because I typically like to not be in drag. There was one time I was going to get in a fight, and I got out of drag so I could go do it.
Because you were raised right.
Because in my mind, I'm like, first of all, taking makeup off with a busted lip is a mission.
Oh, yeah.
And I know from experience, if you get a knot right here and you're trying to take that cosmetic off, because my cosmetics are very long wear, I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm going to keep ahead. And because I use Albolene to take my makeup off. It's that's like lube. It's Vaseline. So I'm like, if you hit me, let's go slide. Let's go.
Excellent.
That was a good purpose. Twofold.
Not just that, but your costumes are expensive too. So it's not like you want to get those torn or bloody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not with your blood, but theirs.
And hey, not every fight's a winning one, but I will always stand my ground. I don't know why. Sometimes I just have a hard time keeping my mouth shut. I'm definitely trying to work on being that confrontational.
Really? Wow. Do you have anger management issues?
I don't want to say so. I typically can delegate how I feel really easily.
Yes.
I like to say,
You're fully aware that you're angry.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just.
Well, and you, in your case, you get out of drag, so you have hanger management issues. It goes on the hanger first, and then the fists come out.
It's on.
And then it doesn't matter what you are, it's going to hurt.
Oh dear. Because I'm not like super easy to set off. It's usually a build up, and I'll like make the person aware, like, hey, right now this isn't really working out. So I'm gonna try to remove myself a bit. Don't continue to upset me.
And they keep poking the bear.
Yeah.
If they keep poking the bear.
And I'm rabid.
Let me tell you something. I do have often said, and Izzy and I have had long conversations about this, you know, that the beginning of the gay pride movement started with drag queens in the streets of New York City. And it just seems to me that a lot of times people think, oh, well, you like to dress as a woman, you're less of a man. But that's not the case at all. The case is that you're so in control of who you are and you feel so empowered that you're not going to put up with shit.
Yeah. I can. Who was the actor in Tu Wong Fu who played
Patrick
Maxima
Swayze.
Jackson?
Oh, or Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes. When he said a drag queen is when a man has too much, what is it? Too much style or something?
For one gender. Yeah.
And that he proceeds to call, what's his name? A little Latin boy in drag? A little Latin boy in a wig or something like that.
Yeah.
Every time I think of like drag, like I feel like that I always go back to that for some reason. And even when it comes to like the gay rights movement and how drag queens had like such a large presence in it, I think of that every single time. I guess it's like them going into a small town and
Gigi Rodriguez.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I do too. I think that movie really did affect a lot of I think the gays really got behind that movie because it really was an allegory for our lives.
Absolutely.
And they got Patrick Swayze in drag.
Well, yeah.
Hey, that man was very elegant.
Yeah.
Everyone was obsessed with him, so I was like, perfect.
And he could move perfectly because of his dancing. And Wesley Snipes was a big feat to me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, he really did. I mean, first of all, the name Maxima Jackson was perfect.
Yep.
Right.
Immaculate.
Right. And it looked like they all had a lot of fun. Tell me, what have you learned? What has drag taught you about life?
Oh, gosh. I think it's taught me a sense of community. I said earlier how I've always been driven behind like a sense of independence, and drag really showed me like I can rely on people. I don't always have to like have my pants pulled all the way up and help everyone else. People could help me. I can call someone and say, hey, like, do you want to do something together? Do you want to be friends? I guess, because I've never been like the best at making friends. And it really like taught me a sense of community. It made me more open to even caring for others, because I lacked a big chunk of empathy for a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
So empathy, it taught you empathy and
Yeah, honestly.
and how to relate to other people.
And connectivity, yeah.
You know, I don't know a lot about it, but you know, the drag houses and this kind of idea of a family, your drag family, does that exist in El Paso, and are you part of that?
Yeah, I do have like my small little subunit of my drag family, because it could get so technical it's not even funny. So people will claim a name if they sat next to them on the bus. My drag family is like a couple of my sisters. I have a son and a drag son and a drag daughter. Who I can't stand either of them.
So it's like a real family.
Yeah. I love them to death. If they needed me, I'd be there. I'm about to go to work with one. And my drag brother, who I will literally introduce to, but we make it a game. Introduce him as my brother to people and they believe it. It'd be just like, we get off on it. It's hilarious. But yeah, drag families are a thing here.
And does everybody adopt the same last name? Like, do your drag children have Bear Wilson?
No, I didn't want them to feel like they had to be an extension of me. I just wanted to be like there for them with whatever they needed. Like if I could help them with something, provide my guidance, like my assistants, I'll always call them like daughter or like my son. But I didn't want them to, like, if they want to, hey, that's their business. But if they come out looking a fool with my name,
alone, honey. It's not permanent.
You've been disowned.
Yeah. My daughter, I'm like, if you come out here and you have my last name and you look a damn fool, don't let them announce my last name. Because I am not responsible for that. You did that.
One last question. So what is scarier than a drag queen reading a book to children?
Oh, gosh. Catholicism. It's like a direct indoctrination of like fears. It literally teaches you like if you're not our definition of a good person, you're down for the rest of your life. When I'm sorry, Dr. Seuss with a wig on didn't do nothing to like that. I genuinely feel like that would have had no lasting effects on me aside from a sense of like, it's first of all a caricature. To me, I see it as the exact same thing as going to Chuck E. Cheese and Charles Entertainment Cheese is over there acting a fool. He just don't talk. And at least the drag queen is literate. To me, I see it as the same thing, but we're completely fine with allowing our children to learn the concept of being damned for the rest of eternity. That's frightening to me.
That is
funny.
And like, burning.
Yeah, like you're okay with your child like learning what is like eternal damnation and burning in like the pits of hell for the rest of time. But Dr. Seuss and there's a man in a wig. As long as they're not exposing themselves, wearing something inappropriate, I don't see a single issue with it. I can't comprehend because the other man in a dress got accused of touching the boy. So I don't know.
I think that's very well put, Sam.
Yeah. Well put.
And so what advice would you have for your 12-year-old self? One, stay away from Catholic priests, I assume.
You know, the worst part is I was really trying to like instigate it and it just didn't take off. I say
the same thing. I went to catechism every Sunday. I looked pretty. Nobody did a bit. I mean, come on.
I was so upset. I'm like watching the news. I'm like, lucky best.
Yeah, right?
And the priest is never really ugly.
Well, it did set me up for rejection in the gay bars because, I mean, I couldn't even get, anything at church.
Remember the priest at Our Lady of the Valley looked like Robert De Niro, and I thought he was so cute.
Yeah, they better watch it because maybe we're the predators. No, but what advice would you have for your younger self, or should we say somebody in your situation, growing up in El Paso, maybe thinking about doing drag, maybe not, but just kind of wanting to experiment with who they are? What would you say?
I would honestly say do it without, be unapologetic about who you are and how you used to express yourself, and never, ever, ever think that you can't ask for help. You can't reach out to other people and you can't develop those connections because they really can be lifelong. And it's important to like leave yourself open to, being open.
Excellent. Sam, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Damas B. Wilson, congratulations on your crown.
Yes.
One
Yay.
of many, and probably many more in the future. And we at Queer Onda are very happy to have you as our guest.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Wonderful time.
And that wraps up our conversation with Damas B. Wilson.
Tune in for our next episode as we visit with organizers of the Sun City Pride Parade. Now's the time to start planning, dropping on the 15th of March.
And for now, this is Ted.
This is Izzy.
And this is Ceci.
This has been
Queer Onda El Paso. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at feedback@queeronda.com or visit our website and leave a comment. www.queeronda.com. That's www.queeronda.com.